dust in the valley of bloodlust, under the sun misunderstood.
Thank you for tuning into the On the Gold podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Hoagland, and joining me today, as usual, is Mr. Kevin Bell. Hey, Kevin, what's up?
Oh, it's great. Great to be back.
It is great to be back. We are back. This is the official return of the On the Gold podcast. And to say the least, I'm going to say it has been a nightmarish couple of months getting everything done. I'm not even going to get into all the details of the move and all of the other things that went along with it. But needless to say, the studio is now about 95% set up. The human, me, is still living out of boxes, but at least I've got the studio just about set up again. And all of the issues have been worked out with the new server, and also with the big connections and so on like that. So we're going to be able to just do a whole lot more in season 2 of On the Gold. So this is season 2, so S2, episode 1, E1. So S2, E1, this is it.
Nice.
Yeah, it is good to be back, man. And I got to say to everyone, this has not been a case of pod fade. Pod fade has never been even an issue. And if you don't know what pod fade is one of those things that they talk about that you just don't want to do a podcast anymore. And that has never been the case with the On the Gold podcast. This has purely been mechanical and technical, just ass kickers, I guess is going to be the easiest way to say it.
Yep. Yeah. And, I got to tell you, Kev, when we went down to the Pomona show.
Kevin, we're back.
Yes,
we're back on the air,
back.
man. Come on, man. Let's live it up a little bit, dude. Let's live it up.
I'm with you. Hey, when we went down to the Pomona show and did the GPAA show, I have to tell you that I was lucky enough to do a seminar there. And one of the guys came up after the show or after the seminar and said, "Hey, I love the On the Gold podcast. When are you guys coming back?"
Yeah.
And it makes you feel good.
Yeah. And I've been bombarded with that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just excited to be back. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to blow over you. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No. I just got to say it was great to actually have people come up and say, "Hey, really miss it. When are you coming back?"
Yeah.
And so, this is a great show. This will be that show, that back in the saddle show.
Yeah, exactly. And quite frankly, I think this one's going to be fairly short because really what I want to do is kind of line out what to expect for season 2.
Yeah.
As we go along. But just like you in Pomona and Albuquerque and Phoenix, I had a great number of people coming up and saying, "Look, what's going on? We really missed the podcast. We enjoy it. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot from you. We've learned a lot from Kevin. We've learned a lot from the guests that you've had on there, mainly Chris Ralph, as has been a wellspring of information." And looking at the analytics with over 5,000 listeners, man, I got to tell you, we can't look. The technical issues are done. The mechanical issues are pretty much taken care of. Got a few more things, the rack and so on like that. But we can't. I feel that we have an obligation at this point to make sure that this thing stays up and stays running with everything else that's going on. 5,000 listeners with 18 episodes, 18, 19 episodes, 5,000 listeners. Man, we're doing something right, and it's because we're listening to what people are asking of us.
Right.
And I think we're getting on top of that.
Right. And what's been great is we've had lots of emails, where people are asking questions, and we've had quite a few of those stacking up. Unfortunately, we weren't, technically able to get back on the air, but we do have some great stuff.
We do
coming up, and I think that's what's great about the what's coming up is we've got some great material and some great questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, there was one thing with a lot of the people that walked up to me over these last 3 shows. And this goes all the way back to Pomona with Randy Cole. Randy Cole is new to prospecting, and the guy just, Randy walked up and said, I love this show. I listen to it all the time, and I've listened to every episode, so on like that. But I'm brand new to prospecting. And can you guys do some stuff on the basics? And I started thinking about that. And you and I talked about this while we were in Pomona. When we talk about some of the basics and things like that, we just kind of like lightly touch on to it as we head to maybe a more advanced level. And I think one of the things that we really have to reference is, and I think it was you that brought it was, you were telling me about the numbers. Our most listened to podcast was is the rule of thumbs.
Right.
Yeah.
That was a big, by quite a margin.
Right. And so when we take something like that, we talk about the rule of thumbs, which is something that every brand new prospector hears, inside bend, gold. Yeah. Gold is where you find it. Inside bend, wherever there's black sand, there's gold, all of these different things. And that gets it down to the basic level. But also during that, between you, Chris, and I, we picked our favorite rule of thumb or myth or whatever it is, and we discussed each one of those. With that being said, I think that, and going into season 2, I think we're going to have a segment, just maybe a segment on the basics.
Oh yeah.
And then how those basics lead into the more advanced. So it may be 5 minutes on, it might be 5 minutes on how to season a gold pan for the brand new guy out there.
Right.
How to season
right.
a plastic gold pan.
And it's a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone for them to, jump from being a basic or being a new miner to be able to come up to those more advanced techniques.
Right. And I think the beauty of all of this is that if we spend a couple of minutes talking about the proper way to season a plastic gold pan, and then immediately jump into some of the other things that go along with it, we're going to be able to take care of all of the folks that listen. We'll be able to take care of the person who has got their first gold pan, all the way up to some of the more experienced prospectors or some of the most experienced prospectors on different types of recovery. So that's
sure.
kind of the way. I think in season 2, if we really look at putting together some segments, and we'll see how it plays out. And of course, all of your feedback is very important to us. So make sure that you email us or let us know what you're thinking, because if you like what we're doing, we'll continue to do it. But if a lot of you just say, you know what, that segment thing, maybe that doesn't work. It's like the whole 5-on-5. 5-on-5 died because you folks didn't like it. And quite frankly, that made a lot of sense. We tried to do something with this so-called 5-on-5 Friday and so on, and it just failed. It failed because it just didn't work. And it started out with great intentions, but I think in the long run, trying to answer 5 questions in 5 minutes and going from there, it's not going to happen. You can't get into 5-and-5 in gold prospecting and hope that you can give a complete answer that will really help somebody to go out there and really become better at prospecting in just a couple of minutes. It's more than that. It's so much more than that.
Right. Yeah. And that's where that feedback, your email, your email comments are so important. And I want to jump back in, Kev, give our email address.
Absolutely.
Again.
I was just getting ready to ask you. You keep talking about email. So how do they get a hold of us?
Yeah. So you can get a hold of us at kh@prospectingedu.com, or get a hold of me, Kevin Bell, at kb@prospectingedu.com. So we are always checking those emails and taking your comments and your concerns and your questions. And rolling that into the show.
Absolutely. So KH and KB at prospectingedu.com, which brings up one big thing.
Yeah.
What is Prospecting EDU?
That's right. Another what's coming up.
Another what's coming up.
Yeah.
All right. You've been working on the skeleton and the backbone and everything else of Prospecting EDU now for months. And
yes.
we've gotten a lot of things put into it. It's not ready for the public yet, but Kevin, you've done the majority of the work on getting the backbone of this thing done. I would really like for you to just kind of give a soft launch overview, because when are we planning the soft launch right now? In June?
Well, yeah. So the soft launch, it's slated for June. Like you said, the backbone's in place, and we're starting to, put meat on the bone there, and we're looking for a soft launch in June.
So tell me, Kevin, what is Prospecting EDU?
Prospecting EDU. This is going to be the area and the website where people can come, and it is a combination of, crowdsource information, very similar to the GPAA online mining guide,
right?
Where you're getting that peer-to-peer connection, and that would be in our resource library. So what we're going to be doing is pulling in resources, historical documents, and other resources, and creating a state-by-state library that people can use to, set up where they're going to mine, or to look into new areas of claims or anything like that. And that will be crowdsourced. So we're looking for people to say, hey, I've got a document here, and I'd like to be able to put it in and share that and make it part of the library. And we're looking for people, as that comes online, to be able to do that very simply.
Right. But we're not putting everything on the backs of the listeners and the people that are going to help in our crowdsourcing. I mean, quite frankly,
right.
The reference material that you and I have right now of, oh man, I sit here and I look at like 7 or 8 reams of paper that of just information that I've collected over the years, all of it public domain, and
right.
Most of it public domain. I mean, some of it is private conversations where I've sought permission to be able to talk about some of these areas and so on like that. And I'm pretty excited about this, but it's a huge undertaking. I mean, I probably have 2,000 pages of research of just 5 or 6 of the Western states, and that will be uploaded, because what we have to do is we have to take the printed material that I have, and I just get it in, do the OCR, turn it into documents online,
right,
and things that are easily accessible, and create some things like that. And then at the same time, we're still working with getting a lot of other information. And I had somebody reach out to me the other day that sent me the cover of a 1940s publication done in the state of South Carolina by the state of South Carolina Mines and Minerals, the Division of Mines and Minerals. And it's a publication that every now and then they've reprinted, and they've added to it a little bit. But there's a lot of talk about South Carolina and North Carolina, and of course the Reed Gold Mine, and where's the gold located. This publication is every locatable mineral, especially gold, in the state of South Carolina. And I'm working right now with the state on getting the permission not to republish this as a printed publication, but to be able to republish this as an ever-living web document.
Right. And one of the things you just made a very important point. One of the things that we're going to be doing with this reference library Of course, we're digitizing things where we can, linking things where we need to, but it's not only about gold, but it's about every locatable mineral or gem, anything like that. So we'll actually start to expand the resource to where it's anything that really can be mined.
Right. Right.
So that's very unique.
Yeah. Gold first. Gold first, then we'll start working with gemstones. Then we'll start to working with other minerals, locatable minerals, and different things like that. So, yeah, we really need to focus on the gold, silver, platinum, or I'm sorry, gold, silver, copper, platinum, so on like that, and then expand from there. But that's prospecting
Right.
EDU. I mean, that's a few months down the road. Let's get
Right.
back to On the Gold podcast, expanding the guest line this year. I mean, Chris Ralph has just been and will continue to be just a cornerstone of some of the things when we get into those topics where it's we need that mining engineer, we need that guy, or just when we want to sit down with Chris and Chris has the time. You know,
Right.
look, Chris is a good friend, and I so enjoy just having conversations with him. And quite frankly, if we just reached into a hat and pulled out something out of a hat, and we just all decided to have that conversation on that, I think people would just would learn an incredible amount from just prospecting out of a hat and coming up with things like that. And that may be that might be something we do.
Right.
Prospecting out of the hat. We'll reach in, we'll grab a question out, we'll see what happens with it. The great
Right.
thing is coming into season 2, we know where we want to go. We know how we're going to get there, but we are not so focused on the end goal that suggestions from our listeners, from the 5,000 listeners that we have right now, we're not so focused that we're not going to take in your feedback and make and incorporate it into what we're going to do. We said
Oh,
this from the
yeah,
very
without a
beginning.
doubt.
This is your guys' show. We said that from the very beginning. This is your guys' show. This is why we're not going to, we'll have sponsors, of course. We'll have possibly, this and that and all and these little bits and pieces and so on like that. But this is a show driven by your questions, driven by our conversations. If we have a conversation, you have something that you want to add to that, please, by all means, KH at Prospecting EDU, KB at prospectingedu.com. Make sure to get that stuff into us.
Right. Yes. And that's really important that everybody understands that this is your show and you drive what we do. And that is the we'll have, like you said, having those expanded guests and having some of the industry leaders, that's great. But to be able to ask them questions that the listeners want to know the answers to, that's the most important.
Right. And now that we have a different backbone and now that we have the ability to do so much more with the connectivity and the fractional T that I have here in the new studio, which I'm not going to kid anybody. The studio is a room in my house that I've converted into, when it's all said and done, it's basically a sound dead room that works, and it works out very, very well. I'm really happy with it right now. And I've got the whirl of the racks in a different spot, so I'm not hearing everything else. It's what it's supposed to be. Now, let's talk about, I don't know, I at this point, I think, I don't know what else to really jump down into any rabbit holes or anything like that. I am so excited to be back. I'm just so glad to be back here behind the microphone and just talking about what we're going to do and talking about things that we're going to do. And I can't wait till we get into the second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth and however many episodes we decide to do for season 2 before we start calling it season 3.
Right. Well, I got to tell you, for me, it's been a big way. You kind of get on those pins and needles, and we've had a couple of jump starts here before we really got everything finalized. You've got the studio set up, but it was still making sure that connectivity was there. So we've had even a couple little burps in the beginning, but we're back online, and we are here to do a great podcast and to get back out on the, like you said, back in the saddle.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Burps.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to go through all of it, but some of these things were not burps. Some of these were just absolute, just vomiting.
Well, yeah.
But we're there.
And when you start out with the word "oops,"
yeah, exactly. The worst thing you could ever hear your surgeon say is "oops," and the last thing, and the worst thing you could ever hear, I think, a podcast host say is "oops," especially when you're just trying to get it up and running. So, with all of that being said, let's look forward to everything that we're going to do in season 2. If you have questions, if you have ideas or show topics, I mean, we've got, believe me, like I said earlier, we've got a pathway. We're looking down that pathway. But if you have ideas or if you have questions, please don't hesitate to get those questions out. We're going to talk a lot about what's been going on in the last few months. GPA Gold shows. I think you and I agree that after walking around at the Pomona show and, of course, with me at the Albuquerque and the Phoenix show, there's a lot of cool stuff out there right now. And I'm not going to hold back.
A lot of new products.
Yeah, a lot of new products. And another thing is there's a lot of older products that have come back into the market by different manufacturers and different things like that. So one show that we do, and I actually am going to say that it's going to be episode 2, just to give you folks a heads up. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that we've seen in the last couple of months that's come onto the market or things that have come back into the market. And it's not going to be no holds bar. I mean, it's going to be no holds bar. It's not, well, some manufacturer came out with this. We're going to talk about the manufacturers. We're going to talk about the people that are bringing these things out, and we're going to give you our honest opinion. So kind of call it a 50 mile an hour, a 50 mile an hour field review, something on those lines.
Yep.
So I'm done. I you know what, everybody, thank you for hanging with us, and thank you for everything that you've done. Thank you for all of the support, especially in this period of time that we've been dark, getting everything else set back up. I truly appreciate each and every one of you, the 5,000 plus listeners that are, and
we couldn't do it without you.
No,
that's
absolutely.
The most important part.
Yeah. And everybody that's been, I can't tell you how many people have walked up to me in the last 3 gold shows. And the other day I was in Safeway. I was walking through Safeway, and a guy walked up and he said, "Hey, when are you going to be back on the air?" And I thought, and I just looked at him and said, "Are you talking about the Gold Trails?" And he said, "No, when is the On the Gold podcast going to be back on the air?" He says, "I miss it. I absolutely miss it." And I really, is there a problem? Is something going on? I explained to him very quickly the challenges that I've had. I can't say we, because it hasn't been on you at all. It's been on me. I shared with him some of the changes or the challenges that I've had with getting all of the equipment set up and everything else like that. And he looked at me and went, "Wow, that really sounds like a real pain in the ass. When are you going to be back on air?"
Yeah. So
yeah.
In reality, when are you going to be back in the air?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. I'm not making excuses. We've had challenges, dropouts. We've tried a couple of times. There's been a couple of times that we've tried to do things, and then in the playback and going into editing and everything else like that, you'd have 5 or 6 minutes of just fantastic audio. Then all of a sudden, 4 minutes is just dead air, beyond dead air. So those issues are worked out. We are back. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us. Thank you for all of your comments. Thank you for everything that you have said and done over these last few months while we've been gone. And that's it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Be good to yourself. Be good to everybody else. And go prospecting.